Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. So we are finally near the end of this project. The light is at the end of the tunnel. So now we are on to the siding. So this is probably going to be a multi-part series, and I'll just go through the siding process more or less. So make sure you like this video, subscribe down below, stay tuned and enjoy. So first things first with siding, I started with the corner posts. So I've got two up already, two to do, and I'll show you here. So I've got the two on the low end done. And I'll tell you that those cuts up there are rather tricky. So tip number one is to take scrap pieces and practice your cuts beforehand. So I took a piece here, figured out my cuts. You can see got an angle of the roof, and this is kind of where it comes down around the soffit pieces. So that's good to do, and then you're not wasting material. So once I had that figured out, I also did the measurement. So basically measured over and drew a line, or you can chalk a line, just where the edge of that nailing flange is going to go. So I basically did that on either side. It took me a while to figure out the measurement, but I got it. And then in terms of cutting the bottom, I basically lined it up, put one nail in the top, had it kind of in place, and then measured down about approximately an inch at the bottom, and marked it, and then took it off, cut it, and then put it back up. And when I put it back up, I finished nailing it in, and you can see there's nails probably every 12 inches or so, 12 to 16 inches I'd say. And that's more or less it for the corner pieces. So for the big tall corners, I basically have to overlap a couple pieces because it's 12 foot high. Corner pieces come in 10-foot lengths, at least the ones I got. So I'll show you here. I've got the big piece all ready to go, and then my short piece up here. So what I did on the lower section is I've cut an inch back, and I've cut basically right up to the face. So I cut the nailing flange off, and what'll happen is that bottom or the top end will basically slide over top, and it will overlap by 3/4 of an inch. You want to leave a 1/4 inch gap just for expansion and contraction. So we're going to get to nailing that up now. So you put on the bottom piece first, and then I'll put on the top piece and kind of make sure I have that 1/4 inch gap, and then nail that piece in. Okay, so what I've done is I've basically put that top piece on, and it comes down to here. So what I did is I measured up 3/4 of an inch, made a line. So that's where I will nail the bottom piece to, because there's going to be that 3/4 inch overlap, right? So we'll do that next. We'll get the bottom piece on. So I pulled that piece off and I'm just prepping the bottom to bend it over. I don't know if I'll actually keep these bends or if I'll end up cutting them off and maybe just putting a cap of some sort on. It's yet to be determined, but I think for now I'll bend them over. So anyways, what I've done is I've basically cut the nailing flange off right to the face and also cut a small wedge out at the corner. And there's a special tool you're supposed to be using to bend it over, but I'm probably just going to use my linesman pliers, kind of grab it and bend it over. Seemed to work okay on this one. Only problem was just trying to keep it looking clean. It's kind of not bent the greatest, so yeah, I don't know. I might have to fix that. Okay, so there you have it. Putting on that corner. It's not the most ideal situation. That seems fairly visible. Another thing too to keep in mind, I've tried my best here, but basically to hit the middle of the nailing slot and then also just to leave a little bit of a gap, just so it can move, it can slide. You're really hanging the siding, you're not putting it on there so it's solid. You'll run into all sorts of issues with vinyl where it'll warp and it won't look very nice after a while out in the sun. So yeah. So what I'm doing is I'm on that last corner piece, so I'm just marking an inch on that nailing flange, and I'm going to cut out that piece for the overlap. So I'm just using my square, and a pen. It's kind of hard to get it to show up. And then part of it might be kind of loosely, done pretty loosely, but that's okay. This part's going to be covered up, so it doesn't have to be perfect. And then yeah, I'll cut that out. And one thing when you're cutting vinyl siding I've found is you almost have to cut little pieces at a time. It's kind of hard to get the snips in there. Cut that piece off. Vinyl siding's pretty forgiving too, so especially if you're not working in the cold. And it is like 30 degrees out right now, so if anything, it's pretty malleable. You can see there, so that end is prepped. Okay, so now that I got that first piece prepped, now I've basically gone and I've taken a measurement down from the highest point to where the top of that bottom piece is going to be, and then I've added 3/4 of an inch for the overlap, so 29 3/4 inches. So now I'm going to go and I'm going to take my other piece, cut that, and then we'll work on the angled part that'll be sitting up against the soffit. Okay, so anyways, there's your 29 3/4 inch piece. The other thing I will mention, which is a good tip, if you're working with hand tools, I found that if you need to like make any fine adjustments, using a utility knife, and this is one of those ones with the hooked blade. I used it for cutting shingles. This actually works really well if it's nice and sharp, just to kind of trim off, you know, like a millimeter or whatever. Nothing significant, but and it keeps it looking pretty clean. So that's my other tip, I guess. Some people might, I'm sure there's proper tools to cut all this. I'm using a big pair of snips, so it's a little bit hard in certain areas to get a nice crisp line. So this allows me to do that. You can also see all the shrapnel, basically because I've been cutting little pieces here and there to get at certain areas. So yeah, I find that works well. But there you go. Now we'll make our angled cut. So again, I'd highly recommend, if you have scrap pieces, to make all your cuts on that first and test them maybe. This one I've already done basically on the other side already, so it should be fairly straightforward. So I know that this is a 412 pitch. So this side here, I just have to use my square, do the 412, cut an angle here. And then the only other obstacle is that F channel, essentially. So I got to cut a little space for that, and that should snug right up into that corner. And then down here you can see right now I've got a little bit extra over that line. I'm not exactly 3/4 over, but wait until I make that cut, and then I'm going to lose a little bit of that space. So we'll go do the 412 and yeah, and then come back and make a little mark for that other spot. So I know that this here is going to be where my 412 is going to go, my angled cut. So again, I'm just using that square, and basically from the pivot point on the corner going up to the 4, kind of lining that up as best as possible. So we'll draw a line. Okay, so I've got my line drawn. Now that's my 412 line. I'll just make some adjustments. Okay, so there you have it. Corner pieces are all done. Yeah, that was kind of tricky actually. just with that overlap there. But anyways, okay, so now that we got our corner pieces on, next step is putting on our J channel. So this is J channel here, kind of see it. That's what this is just a sample piece, but it's got to go around all the windows, garage door, the man door, and all around the top. So on the gable ends at the very top, and then along both sides. With that too, on the top, I will be putting undersill trim probably inside of that as well. But we're going to focus on the J channel. We're going to get that up. So we'll go through that. And yeah, I'll show you how to cut it. If you have long runs, you have to overlap it. And then there's specific cutting techniques for around the windows and the doors. So we'll go over that as well. Okay, so now that I got this piece up, I'm going to cut it so it lands on the strapping here, and I have to cut it with this kind of a cutout of it so it overlaps the next piece. So you're basically cutting back an inch on the nailing flange as well as an inch on the actual J channel. So I'm gonna probably do that somewhere around here so it lands right there, and then it will overlap the next piece. So you can see the overlap there. Also see I left a 1/4 inch gap for expansion. So for doing the J channel around the top on the gable ends, I'm actually using a little test piece again, basically to find that angle, and then making sure that's right, and then transferring it to the actual piece I'm using. As you can see here, the gable end, so I'm just finding the angle on the low end, which is this right there. So once that's figured out, I just transfer it to the other piece and we're good to go. Okay, so I've kind of jumped ahead just a little bit. I did all the J channel around the top, on the gable ends and both the long ends, and I actually went ahead and I did it on the windows and the door, and the vent, but I didn't film it. It's not the greatest job, I'm not gonna lie. Kind of started out, and I'll show you here. So I tried doing angled cuts. I was following Shannon's video there at House Improvements or Home Improvements, great channel. Anyways, the bottom doesn't look that bad. Bottom kind of lines up, but it's the top piece. Yeah, you can see it right there. I don't know if it's because I have the drip cap. It was just kind of the measurements weren't quite right, but that angled cut just isn't sitting too well on either window. So I don't know. Again, the bottom looks pretty good, I think. And then yeah, as soon as I went up and did that top piece and went to nail it in, it was just off on the angles. So you can definitely, I can see it on that corner right there. It's a pretty big gap, probably half an inch. So is what it is. I wasn't gonna kind of mess around and keep cutting pieces and wasting material. So yeah, I'm just gonna have to make do with that. And so there's the door. You can see I did flat cuts instead at the top. I just ran that top piece right across. Otherwise I think it's not too bad. Okay, so I'm just finishing up the J channel around the garage door. That's the last bit of J channel to do. There was some issues here, so I'll show you here. This strapping is not wide enough for the J channel, so I basically have to put another 1x3 here, running down the sides so that J channel has something to nail into. So I'm gonna have to cut out a piece of this to get the J channel to go in. I'll nail it in, and then I'm gonna do drip edge along the top. Now, technically, the drip edge should have been done before I did the strapping, but now it's gonna be done kind of in hindsight. So will it help? I don't know. Not too sure. I am concerned that the water might run kind of down behind that brick mold and then hit the jam, maybe go in. Yeah, I don't know. We'll have to see. It's kind of too little too late right now, so I'm gonna try to put the drip edge up. I might cut portions of that corrugated vent that I had up there and then kind of bend back the pieces that are going to go between the strapping so it kind of touches the wall, and then that way it kind of, if anything runs down that inner, basically right there in between the strapping, it'll hit the edge of the drip edge that's kind of all cut and fold back between the strapping, and hopefully it comes out to the outer edge, but I don't know, we'll see. Anyways, I'm gonna get to her. Okay, so now we got all the J channel up. The next step for trim is undersill trim. So I got to go around, I got to put it under the two windows, and I'm going to put it along the, I guess the long walls at the top. So I'll run it here under that J channel, and same with the other window over there. And then I'm also going to run it along that upper edge. So the point of that will be basically to hold that upper piece of the panel in place, and then I'll use a crimping tool and I'll actually crimp that and then stick it in the undersill trim, so it'll be nice and secure, and it won't be if it was just in the J channel, it might be flapping around a little bit, so it'll just be a little bit more secure overall. But yeah, that's what we're going to do next. So Okay, so all the undersill trim is now done. The last little bit of trim that I have to do is just down here. So it's a little bit complicated with that junction box, but I'm going to use a mounting block to go around that, and I'm going to have to kind of modify it quite a bit. And then the starter strip will go below. So that'll be the next step. So there you have it, folks. That's part one of the siding. In part two, coming shortly, we will actually get to putting on, well, the starter strip I'll show, and then all the actual siding will be going on. So make sure you like this video, subscribe down below if you haven't. Stay tuned and enjoy. Thank you.